Welcome to Children's Church. We've been talking through a series of what did Jesus say about something. Today, I want to talk about a big fancy word called obedience. Obedience. Well, it means to obey. Okay, so I just used the word in the definition, didn't I? So, the dictionary says obedience, or to obey, means to comply with or to follow someone's guidance, directions, or suggestions. I like things really simple. Basically, obey means do what someone says. It's pretty simple, right? But sometimes it's not as easy as just saying it, right? What did Jesus say about obeying? You know, a couple of stories come to mind. The first one was when a bunch of teachers of the law and Pharisees were getting around Jesus, and they had gotten really grumpy with him, and they were trying to trap him in his words. They were trying to ask him trick questions to get him in trouble. And Jesus looked at him and said, there was a man who had a vineyard, a place where you grow grapes, so you can make wine and grape juice and things. And he had all these grapes that were growing, and they needed some work done in the vineyard. And so Jesus said to his first son, "Son, I would like you to go work in the vineyard today." And the son looked at his father and said, "No, I'm not gonna. No way. Not gonna do it. No way. Not gonna do it." But later on that day, he felt bad. He shouldn't have talked back to his dad. He felt guilty. And so, even though he didn't want to, he decided, I got to go do the right thing. And he went out into the vineyard and worked all the rest of the day in the vineyard, like his father had asked. Now, the father had asked his second son, "Son, I would like you to go work in the vineyard today." And his second son said, "Yes, sir, Father, you can count on me. I'm Mr. Reliable. Ding! I'll go work in the vineyard." And the father went on his way. And that son went on his way, but not to the vineyard. No. He didn't work in the vineyard at all. He just went off and did whatever he wanted to do. So Jesus asked the Pharisees and the teachers of the law, which one of those two sons obeyed his father? Well, the first one, they said. And Jesus said, yeah. And then Jesus pointed out that the sinners and the tax collectors and the wicked evil people were getting into heaven ahead of the religious folks of the day. Because he said, even though they were saying the wrong things, they changed and did what God was telling them to do. Later on, Jesus was explaining to the crowds about obedience, and he said, whoever hears my words and does them, I'll tell you what he's like. He's like a wise man who went to build a house. And so he dug down deep into the ground, grabbing the pickaxe and going all the way down until he found the rock, the hard rock under the ground. And there he carefully chiseled in for his foundation of his house. And once he had done all that work, he started building up and up and up and built himself a beautiful house. It took a long time, but he built a beautiful house. Now, it was near the river, and the rains came down of a big thunderstorm, and the water of the river started to rise up, and it turned into a flood, and the floodwaters crashed against the house. But because the house was on a firm foundation, it stood. Jesus said, but the people who hear my words and don't do them, I'll tell you what that's like. That's like the foolish man who went out to build himself a house. Now, he saw the wise man building in a deep foundation and went, takes forever. And so he just started building it on the sand. He didn't dig at all. He just started building up a house, and lickety-split, just like that, his house was done. It looked just as nice. It looked beautiful. And then the rains came down, and the floods came up, and the water crashed against his house, and his house crashed completely and was washed over in the floodwaters and was utterly destroyed. And that's the end of our story. Listen to those two stories one more time. What did Jesus say about obedience, obeying, doing what you're told? Listen to them one more time or watch them one more time, and then we'll go through our quiz questions. Okay? All right. Our first question, I'm assuming you watched it a second time now. All right, be ready. These are tricky quiz questions. First question, what pleased you? What did you like about these stories? Our next question is, well, what displeased you? What did you not like about these stories? Our third question asks, what do these stories tell us about people? What people are like? The nature of people. Our fourth question asks, what do these stories tell us about God? What God is like? The nature of God. Our fifth question asks, what meant the most to you about these stories? What touched you? What really kind of made you go, yeah, that sticks with me? Our sixth question asks, what should I do differently because of these stories? Now remember, this one needs to be answered, I should something. And then our last question, who should I tell these stories to? It's a little easier this week because they're kind of shorter stories. Who should I tell these stories to? Now remember, it can't be someone who is sitting watching the children's church with you. And it has to be a person. Human being, 2 legs. I got to get very specific about these rules. Alrighty. Well, I look forward to seeing you next time when you join us again for Children's Church.